Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you're doing well. This is going to be a continuation of my bookshelf tour. This will deal with science, maybe a little bit of history of science, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of introductory prattle. I'll just get right into it. First, I have here The Origins of Order, Self-Organization and Selection and Evolution by Stuart A. Kauffman. Now, I haven't read this in full. I've given it repeated, I guess what you'd call survey readings, dipped in here and there. I need to read the thing properly. But what it does, it takes a discussion of the physical and mathematical study of complex systems and their sometimes capacity for self-organization, and brings that into conversation with our understanding of biochemical systems and evolution. I hope that makes some sense to you, because this is an area that really intrigues me, and it's two realms of thought that traditionally haven't played so well together, and I would certainly like to see a meeting of the minds there. Although I'm seeing that happening more and more. But yeah, why haven't I read this one all the way through? I guess it kind of makes me sad. Reminds me of the sort of thing I wanted to do professionally at one time, and don't want to sound too pathetic here, but makes me wonder where I've gone wrong in life. But yeah, Origins of Order, Stuart A. Kauffman, book number 1. Number 2, somewhat similar territory. From Matter to Life, Information and Causality. This is a series of essays edited by, I'm sorry, I can't read these backwards, Sarah Amari Walker, Paul C.W. Davies, and George F.R. Ellis. So yeah, this looks at, once again, information theory, entropy, and brings that into contact with our understanding of biological systems. I find that a very insightful approach to understanding just that. What exactly happens when matter becomes life? It's a pretty profound mystery. Like I said, it's one of my absolute favorite things to read about, but it's kind of depressing at the same time. But enough of that. Let's move on here. There's one more look at it. Matter to Life. There's your authors. Here I have The Logic of Life, History of Heredity by Francois It's probably not Jacob, is it Jakob? I don't know. I don't speak fancy. But anyway, this is kind of a modern classic, I guess you could call it. It's much ballyhooed. It's my understanding is he takes from about the 17th century forward, maybe 16th century more like, various frameworks that have developed for understanding heredity, because it's such a central characteristic of life. And it's really intriguing to see how that understanding of heredity has evolved over the centuries. Really gives a interesting perspective on the history of biology. And of course, biology in many ways became a different science. Some would say it only became a science with the elucidation of the structure of the DNA molecule and working out the genetic code, because we had a chemical basis and understanding of heredity at that point, something we could study in a more rigorously empirical way, more than just observing crosses and doing statistical analysis. So yeah, it should be an interesting history of science there. Logic of Life by Francois Jacob, or Jacob, or however fancy you would have it. And finally, I have one I've actually read. Mapping Fate, a memoir of family, risk, and genetic research by Alice Wexler. This is kind of a strange book, actually. It is a family memoir about a woman and her sister and what they go through when they realize that their mother is showing symptoms of a condition called Huntington's disease. If you're not familiar, it's a neurodegenerative condition it's just hell. It is probably one of the worst ways to go, quite frankly, because you get both the dementia and the uncontrollable physical movements. It's ugly. It's horrible. I really can't do it justice. It's a nightmare. But anyway, they discover that their mother has this horrible condition and find out that it had actually run in her family for generations. And you get the aspect of that emotional discovery, what's going to happen to their mother. And they find out that all this had been known and kind of kept from them. But not only that, they are facing a very high chance, because this is an autosomal dominant thing, that they are going to be meeting with the same fate themselves. But at the same time, the book, because the author's sister, very heavily involved in scientific research, it very closely chronicles the work that was done. There's a population in Venezuela I believe it's Venezuela, where Huntington's disease is very prominent. I believe it was traced back to a single sailor from Portugal who brought it there from Europe, and it has just been passed down generation to generation since. And they were used as a study population. A lot of blood and tissue samples were taken. And this book also, like I said, chronicles that procedure and gets into quite a bit of chemical detail of how they went about mapping where the gene involved in Huntington's disease is located on the fourth chromosome, and the development of a test that can tell people definitively if they're going to develop this thing or not. So that's why the Mapping Fate, it's kind of a dual title, the memoir aspect of mapping fate, through this family, but also the scientific aspect of mapping this gene. And it's an interesting question. If you did have this test that can tell you if you were going to meet this horrible fate, would you want to know? So, yeah, it's a heavy book. And the word fate isn't used lightly. I mean, this is genetic fate at its most simple, straightforward, and most cruel, really. I guess I am using it melodramatically in a way. I mean, genes are indifferent in the way that the ocean does not dream of you. I mean, but yeah, from a human's perspective, this is, like I said, fate at its most simple, straightforward, and cruel. So there it is. Interesting, but sad book. This, I don't know a whole lot about it. Making Modern Science, a Historical Survey by Peter J. Bowler and Ewan Reese Morris. Looks to be just a historical survey of science from the 17th century forward. I'm interested in the history of science. Looks like the book got a lot of praise. Thought it sounded interesting, so here it is. Don't have much more to say at this point. Here I have Creatures of Cain, The Hunt for Human Nature in Cold War America by Erica Lorraine Milam. Everything okay up there? She's not responding. But apparently in the post-war years in the United States, there was a big rise of the so-called killer ape theory as a overly simplistic way of understanding human nature. I guess during the Cold War, we viewed as humanity's supposed evolutionary success and its status as a glorified aggressive ape as an explanation of all things human behavior. But then as more research was done with primates, we found out that that's a very simple picture, and the killer ape notion kind of fell out of favor and was viewed as a either downright wrong or simplistic popularization. But I thought it'd be an interesting time to read about. see if I can find that picture here. I like this picture. Mankind receiving the mark of Cain, the aggression there. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's another one of those kind of history and trends and science things. This one's simple enough. It's just a big fat biography of Darwin, The Life of a Tormented Evolutionist, by Adrian Desmond and James Moore. I've read shorter pieces about Darwin, but I like to dig into more detail, and I don't know what to say. Biography of Darwin. There it is. And last, I have one that has been sitting on my shelf forever. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm really avoiding it. I just haven't gotten to it. It might be a little intimidating because it's like 1,400 pages, but Stephen Jay Gould's The Structure of Evolutionary Theory. I guess this is just his attempt to put the many facets of evolutionary thought into kind of a coherent framework, structure, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm flipping through this for don't know how many times now, and covered a lot of history. It's quite far-reaching, so it should be quite a read when I actually get around to reading it. So there it is. Okay, before I limp to an awkward close here, I thought I'd give you a little what I'm up to update. I was in the mood to revisit a little bit of Thomas Ligotti, so there you go, Songs of a Dead Dreamer and Grimscribe. Oddly enough, I always found Ligotti's style kind of difficult to read, but returning to him this time, I'm not finding it, so not quite sure why, but yeah, I was just in the mood. Plus with Horror MAYhem coming up, I'll link some information about that below, but that was a reading event that celebrates short form, like short stories and novellas, horror literature. It was the brainchild of Scott Bryant, who sadly is no longer with us, but they keep the event in his memory, and I wanted to participate in that. So yeah, I'm getting started a little early. And I also want to read something science related. I'll pick something out here. Maybe I should finally get to that blasted Structure of Evolutionary Theory. I haven't decided yet, though. I kept trying to read my thing about the Aztecs, but I just kept having the whole infant and child sacrifice thing come up, and I just can't take that right now. And yet I can read Ligotti, go figure, but one's pretend, one isn't. But last here, here's my new Lego project. Has a long way to go yet, but there's the beginning. Should I tell you what it is? I won't tell you what it is yet. Might be able to figure it out, but yeah, it looks pretty cool so far. I've been enjoying it. Be working on that over the coming weeks, so should be fun. But in any case, I hope you're doing well. Take care. Later days.
But am I not turtly enough for the Turtle Club?